Good evening, everyone. My name is Hawa. I'm from Sierra Leone, West Africa. But first, what does resiliency mean to me? Well, to me, resiliency means being strong in the face of adversities, learning how to take care of yourself and love yourself, even when you know that your human rights has been trampled upon, and using the same adversities that you have been a victim of to create hope for others, and transforming yourself into the hope that you've always wanted to see. Even though at age 2, I lost my mom in the 11-year civil war in Sierra Leone, which placed my dad in an unstable condition, I still survived it as I was a champion in my village. Unfortunately, when I was 9 years old, my village became polluted with teenage pregnancy and child marriage. And that was the first time in my life that I felt so uncomfortable in the place that I'd always called home. And therefore decided to go stay with my uncle who lived in the township. 2 years later, my uncle kicked me out of his house and wanted me to go back to the village. But that wasn't my choice, because I knew exactly what would be my fate back in the village. So I took up to the street. I went house to house in search of housing, food, and education. A year later, I came across an activist who became a mother in my life. She supported my education. She also supported me with my basic needs. Later, some of my family members walked up to her and started accusing her of being the one brainwashing me, not to obey my traditional values. And therefore, that's the reason why I'm still not married. Because my family is like a very religious Islamic family that doesn't believe that much in education, especially girl child education. So she was placed in a very scary position as they were threatening her. So she gave me back to them. So this time around, in the custody of my grandmother. At my grandmother's house, one Friday evening, I came from school. And I saw a bunch of strange women cooking in our house in big pots. And I'm like, what is happening here? I went straight up to my grandma's room and said, good evening, Grandma. She said, good evening, Toma. How was school today? I said, fine. What are those women doing here, and who are they? Well, they are my guests. We are actually having a meeting here tonight. So that's why they are cooking. I said, oh, okay. And please, Ntoma, would you please go to my friend's place and collect me some stuff? Which of your friends? I asked. The one who lived across the road, closer to the bush. Yeah, sure. I ran straight off to my room and took off my uniform and ate as quickly as I could and went to her friend's place. The moment I got there, the lady asked me, your grandma sent you, right? I said, yes, she did. Okay, then let's go. Go where? I asked her. So the lady who is keeping the stuff she sent you to collect. Oh, okay. I followed her. We walked for like 10 minutes, and we finally arrived at our destination. A round building with a thatch fence around it. And I'm like, who lives here? Because it was nowhere in the bush. So she said, well, here is where we're coming. The moment we entered the place, she straight off went into the room and said, wait for me here. And all of a sudden, I started seeing women coming from all angles. Very strange women. And I'm like, what are all these women doing here? And there is no man here anyways. The next person I saw was my auntie. Wondering what my auntie was doing there, I saw a group of other women with red and white scarves on, wrapping red and white scarf on their head. And to my greatest surprise, I saw my grandmother, who had sent me there, coming from the room. And I'm like, Grandma, what are you doing here? I thought you sent me here. She said, oh, yeah, I did. I thought you were not coming there, so I had to come there myself to get the stuff. I said, oh, okay. Then I guess it's about time I started going. She said, oh, no, I want you to wait for me. I'll be leaving here in no time, and I want us to go together. She went back to the room. Standing there, a lady walked up to me and said, would you please sit down? I said, yeah, sure. And I sat on the mat. While sitting down, a lady from nowhere started dancing and making fun of things. And everyone started laughing, including myself. And the same lady who had asked me to sit down said my grandma was calling me in the room. She pointing to the room, your grandma is calling you. And the moment I stepped my feet at the door, she said, wait, coming towards me with scarf in her hand. I watched her tie my eyes with a scarf, and she held my hands and said, I want you to walk carefully. This is a bridge for you. And I'm like, how is it possible for a bridge to be in the middle of nowhere in a house, a very tiny building as that? I entered the building and I noticed the darkness of the building. Standing in the middle of nowhere, the next thing I felt was my clothes being ripped off me. I'm like, what is happening here? What is the meaning of this? Nobody could respond to me. I was asking like random questions, but nobody answered me. And I had my grandma talking at the background to other women. The next thing I felt was me being swept off my feet on the ground. And now my hands are being tied from the back. And my legs are widely being open and held really tightly by these women. I felt really scared and uncomfortable, and I started shouting out for help. But the moment I started shouting out really loudly, the women started dancing and singing all over the place, and they started drumming, so nobody could possibly hear me shouting. And the next thing I felt was me being caught on my vagina. I cried. Nobody could listen to me. Nobody even said sorry to me. And they later on placed me in a really dark room that night, where I spent the night. And that night I cried for my life to be taken away, because I was overflowing with pain. First thing in the morning, as I was trying to fall asleep, I felt somebody waking me up, saying, would you please get up? I'm like, why? Are you here to kill me? She said, well, we are not here to kill you. We want you to know that we love you. And we are doing this because of the love we have for you, and because we want you to be accepted in your society. We want you to be recognized as a woman in the community. I said, well, I didn't ask for it. I mean, I'm fine. She said, well, we also want to tell you that what happened to you yesterday had to be repeated again today, because it was dark yesterday and the procedure wasn't carried out properly. And therefore, we need your fullest cooperation. I'm like, okay. Because I know what these women are capable of. I mean, they had done it to me in less than 24 hours, so I wasn't willing for a fight this time around. I said, okay, no worries. And they asked me to just lay down on the floor, just as they had forced me to do the other day. And I laid down on the floor. They held my hands and my legs, and they re-cut me again at the same place they had done it the previous day. When I came out of this, 3 weeks later, I went home. Like, I was ceremoniously taken back to my house, to my grandmother's house. I tried having the conversation with women in my neighborhood, like women that were in position. But none of them were really willing to have this conversation with me. Anytime I start the conversation, they will say, oh, is that what you want to say? Okay, I have a meeting now. I will see you later. Oh, is that what you want to say? Please say something else. Or they will just start going. I started asking myself, I said, why are people deviating from this conversation? Why is nobody willing to have this conversation with me? I mean, what is so special about this? So here is what I did to myself. But first, what is female genital mutilation? And what are the ideologies behind female genital mutilation? Female genital mutilation is a traditional ritual that involve the total or partial removal of the female genitalia, the clitoris in particular, for non-medical reason. It is the ideology that we women are unclean in our natural state, and therefore should be mutilated of our clitoris for us to be accepted by society. It is a supposed passage from childhood to womanhood. And it has numerous effects on us. It often has the effect of making us feel inferior and unequal to men. It has the effect of limiting us of our potentials and submitting us, making us feel submissive and really docile. So what am I going to do to come out of this now that I've been through it? So here is what I did. Even though I was forced to take an oath upon initiation that I wasn't going to say a word about it, that I wasn't going to secede from it, that I wasn't going to do anything that is against their dictates, I did it. Here is how I did it. I asked myself, Hawa, now that nobody wants to have this conversation with you, what are you going to do? Are you going to keep on crying? Are you going to keep on looking down upon yourself? No. This is not the first time for you to be through pain. Remember, you lost your mom when you were 2, and your dad was very much depressed, and you had to literally take care of yourself. So now is the time to show that you are that powerful woman you've always been. Don't allow them to bring you down. Use the experience you've had through FGM to take care of yourself, to love yourself, and to transform yourself into this powerful person you want to be. Use your experience through FGM to create hope for others, because there are thousands more out there who are vulnerable to this. Use your experience through FGM to transform yourself into the change that you wanted to see in those women that you wanted to have the conversation with. And that's what I did. I inspired myself at that moment more than ever before. Knowing that my family doesn't support education, I literally supported myself. I motivated myself to focus in school and to get the best I could. I transformed myself into this fierce activist who advocates for the rights of women and girls and against the harmful practices of the very FGM itself. And at times I look at myself and say, wait. I mean, who would possibly go through all the stuff you've been through and come out of them standing out so tallly, with so much confidence, and does all the things you do? And I said, well, no one I possibly know of. So I renamed myself. Instead of calling me Hawa, the victim of FGM, I said, well, I'm Hawa, an example of female genital mutilation gone wrong. And I have a mission. My mission is that I want our generation and our world to be free from all sorts of violence and abuses, inequalities. And I want female genital mutilation to end with our generation. Thank you.